Joining us now to break it down, Fox News contributor, a man that knows a lot about foreign trips and when people try to minimize it. He's the former Deputy Chief of Staff for George W. Bush, Fox News contributor, Wall Street Journal columnist Karl Rove. Karl, were you surprised at how angry the Democrats seemed to be while the president was overseas?
Not really, but they were very angry. Look, they've been perpetually angry since November of last year, and they are angry at Trump, but they really ought to be as angry about themselves, because they are so focused on being against him that they can't figure out what they're for. And as a result, the Democratic Party is now held in lower esteem than it has in some 40 some odd years, and it's going to be hard for them to get out of it if they keep up this mindset.
Yeah, I mean, just some of the things that were pulled off. It wasn't a perfect trip. He didn't get everything he wanted. Would I have loved him to push to level off the oil that he's buying from Russia? Absolutely. Well, would I love for them to tamp down what they're doing in Taiwan and rattling the neighbors? Absolutely. But this is what he did get. U.S. cut in fentanyl. They said they'll pursue a cut in fentanyl. They could do that now. So he said he cut some on the tariffs. Total tariffs on most goods now at 47%. China agrees to cooperate when it comes to fentanyl. China pauses rare earth controls for at least a year. We agree to purchase soybeans, as you heard. Reciprocal suspension of shipping levies. U.S. postpones a rule to prohibit blacklisting additional Chinese subsidiaries. Listen, China is strong, but they are vulnerable. And we are vulnerable when it comes to rare earth. We got to find a way in a Manhattan Project warp speed way to fill that gap, or we're always going to be over a barrel with them.
Yeah, and look, let's remember that specific provision with China is for 1 year. And that's why the agreement with the Australians on rare earth, that's why green lighting the development of, we call them rare earths, but they're pretty common, and we have lots of them in the United States. Ukraine has a lot of them. There are a lot in, for example, in the Nordic countries. But we've got to develop our own resources, and the difficult thing there is the cost and the expense of building the facilities to refine those substances into usable items. But we got 1 year. Look, I think you need to look at this maybe a little from a different perspective. China is here. The rest of the deals are here. The rest of the deals are likely to be fulfilled and are based around the principle of reciprocity. I take 3 lessons away from that. One is the president has an excellent team in the Secretary of the Treasury, the Secretary of Commerce, the Trade Representative, and in some instances, it's necessary to bring in the Secretary of State. And all 4 of those people have done an extraordinary job in executing the president's plan. Second of all, reciprocity. The president is putting an emphasis on you treat us nice and we'll treat you nice. You lower your tariffs and your barriers, we'll lower ours. And I think that's moving to our mutual advantage. And third of all, he is treating these people and their countries as true partners and equals, which means there are benefits. As he said to the Japanese Prime Minister, let me know what you need. But he's also saying you got to do your part. The South Koreans of the 3 countries we talked about, Japan's doing what it needs to do on defense. Malaysia is not as important a national security partner, but South Korea has not been doing its job in muscling up its defenses, and the president got them to agree to do that. And I thought that was an extraordinary achievement.
I want to get to this other point, too, and that is looking back at the 4 years of Joe Biden. People say, why are you looking back? Well, they keep writing books, and then people keep getting revelations about what we were talking about, and that is Joe Biden seemingly failing on the world stage and invisible when it comes to governing. Ian Sams, who would scream to the heavens every time he came out as President Biden's spokesperson, how on top of it he is, how with it and how sharp Joe Biden is. Behind closed doors, he had a different story. Listen to this.
That's the President Biden that so many of us experience every single day. Someone who's asking the tough questions so that we as staff can be sharp to do our job best for the American people.
I think I met with the president a handful of times during my tenure in the White House.
And one of those times was by Zoom when he was at Camp David. Karl, this is a big story nobody wanted to cover and wants to cover. Your thoughts?
We knew that they weren't telling us the truth. Who were we going to believe, them or our lion eyes? And we believed what we saw. And the American people had these grave doubts. And it now turns out that he was surrounded not only by a group of people who were hiding the truth from us, but he was also surrounded by people who lied to us. And you've just heard from one of them.
Right. We had this with Woodrow Wilson for 17 months. He had a stroke. No one saw him, heard from him, and his wife was running the country. We swore that would never happen again. It happened, but maybe for 4 years. This story is just beginning. We're not going to stop. Karl, thanks so much.
You bet.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.